the sub-area directors election and ask our judges to grab the ballot boxes and do your talents. And once you've done those, just bring them back into the meeting. You can set it these ones next to me and we'll read them later in the agenda.
Thank you.
That's yours?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that was part of it.
Well, the ones that they're not going to counter in.
And then it is also 6 o'clock, so I'll call to order the February 27th, 2025 meeting of the Lake Lemon Conservancy District Board of Directors. We will start the meeting by inviting any members of the public that would like to come to the podium and make comments. You're welcome to do so. We do ask if you do come, please keep your remarks to approximately 2 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to the board tonight?
I'm sorry, I couldn't even. That back door is not propped open. I'm knocking on the front door. Thank goodness those guys came.
Seeing no one speaking tonight, I will move to item 3, approval of board minutes for the December 12th, 2024 board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion from Steve. Do I have a second? Second from Malcolm. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll abstain since I was absent. Motion carries.
I was absent.
Oh, Debbie will too. Moves on, we'll let Debbie get a little situated here to the treasurer's report.
Oh, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, well, we haven't met for a while. So, just maybe highlighting over for the year end of December 31st, 2024. We did pretty well. We came in pretty close to where we thought budget wise. At the end of the year, we've got $241,000 in our general funds. Almost $1.2 million in construction and savings accounts. Our construction accounts down to $182,537. Savings, $732,000. You'll see on the income statement, we racked up quite a bit of interest this year, so that was a good thing. Bonds payable are down under $1 million now. At the end of the year, $975,000. So overall, total net worth is about $900,000, but again, 700 and some changes in fixed assets. The only thing to note about the December financials, just December itself P&L, and I'd like to just kind of move on to comparison to budget, but obviously we got all our tax money in that month. So we basically had total income of $388,000, expenses of only just under $30,000. So our net income for the month, if you will, was $358,000. If you look at the P&L for January through December for the full year, we had a total income of about $1,326,000, and over $900,000 of that is tax money. Between the cumulative conservative improvement amount, that was almost $62,000. We had $205,000 from Brown County, and we had $634,000 from Monroe County. Beyond that, I think maybe we should move to maybe a comparison to budget. Overall, year to date, though, it's about a deficit of $248,000, which is a little bit less than what we thought we'd have because we had settlement mitigation expenses of $1,031,000. If you look at the comparison of this year end to last year end, we did better in terms of income. We were $45,000 more in income than we were the year before. But we were about $500,000 more in expenses because of the significant money that we put into the settlement mitigation this year. The prior year, it was only about $600,000, and this year we had the $1,131,000. Are you gonna cover this in your report? Are you covering any finances?
I'll do a little bit, just kind of where we ended the year at, really just kind of, we came in at, 99.6% of our budgeted revenue for the year, so pretty good to come in less than 0.5% off of that.
I was gonna comment on that. I just want to be sure.
Yeah,
But
I got a little bit in there, but not a whole lot.
we budgeted $1,332,000 in income, and we ended up at $1,327,000, so we were only like $5,000 off, so I felt like really good about that. In terms of the expense side, we had budgeted a deficit of almost $430,000. We budgeted expenses of $1,761,000, and we had actual expenses of $1,635,000. So we actually did $120,000 better than what we had planned on. And there are a number of graphs and things like that that you all can take a look at, but you'll see if you look at the comparison of actual to budget, I do need a motion, I believe, to transfer funds, and the document is in materials, but anything for audit purposes where we've spent more than what we budgeted, we need to transfer funds to cover that, and we had a number of line items that we were able to pull from that we're gonna transfer $18,900 in expenses from the consulting engineer. We had budgeted $15,000 for a pontoon boat. We had a contingency fund, equipment rental, riprap, erosion control. Each of those line items, 10 grand. So those things are gonna be transferred between line items to offset that. So if I could have a motion.
I'll make that motion, year-end transfer of funds within the general fund.
Okay.
Moved by Mike, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Les. Any discussion on that motion?
We do that every year.
State Board of Accounts is very happy when we do that. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I think were there any questions on the December 31st year-end financials? Did I cover enough of it? Adam will probably hit some high points. So I need next a motion to approve the December vouchers, which total $25,341.58. That was payroll of $9,041 and other expenses of $16,300. The big things there in those claims paid were like algae testing was $2,100. We paid our accounting folks $1,500, and we had disposal site prep, like hauling dirt, I guess, for $8,200.
Yeah, we hauled over 300 triaxles of dirt from the Possum Trot site to make sure that we keep that open for the private dredging moving forward.
How much dirt was that, Adam?
Over 300 triaxles, I want to say it was close to 4,000 yards.
There was two separate
To
bills.
the property at the,
That all went down to Kenny Clark's,
Thank you.
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was, were they both Possum Trot? It was
Yeah,
two invoices,
yeah.
275, but I wasn't sure.
It was all Possum Trot.
Okay. All right.
Do we have a motion to approve the December 2024 report of claims?
I left my computer at the office, and so I'm using my phone.
I've got it pulled up here, but
I'll make that motion, or Steve can make it.
Okay, moved by Steve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Les. Any discussion on the December claims? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I don't know if you're having a hard time with that document, but this PDF, like, some of them blow up
Yeah,
really
I
big. and
realized
some of
that.
them were small, and it was
Yeah.
driving me crazy
Trying to
today.
scale them.
Yeah, I will work on that moving forward. I noticed that as well when I opened it up.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay.
Michael, it's too bad that you didn't get the accounting work that you planned on having done prior to you leaving. So just wanted to throw that out there. You did have a plan, and maybe we can get that taken care of.
I'm gonna hit on January real quick. I already kind of mentioned many of the highlights from December. Not a lot happened in January. Overall, we had income of $4,700. Interest of $13.93. I think we had over $22,000 in interest last year, which was really nice with the rates the way they are. And then we had overall expenses of $50,000. The highlights there, and you'll see on the claims when I ask for the approval of those, are 20,000 was our insurance payment out of that total of 50,000. We had some things that we bought for the Polar Plunge that was like $1,160, are one of two events that we run. We also had to pay for a barn arbitrage compliance report, and that only happens one time. But it's basically checks the interest rates, what we're earning versus what we're paying.
Yeah, and kind of looked at our assets and taxes coming in and making sure that we still had.
So that was $4,700, but it's not gonna occur again. And then we had discussions, the officers along with Adam, and approved him paying, and he'll talk more about it, but we had to make an initial kind of down payment for the Riddle Point Boogie, which is like $5,350. We fully expect we'll be getting that back, but it was really to give some seed money to get the event going.
Yeah, pretty much all the deposits for bands and lighting stages and.
While we're on that, so in December, we've already approved that one, but we paid $355 for health insurance. And then in January, we're paying $35 for health insurance. I'm just, and I know there's always been some kind of health insurance deal.
So the health insurance is a payroll reduction, so we pay it and then it gets taken out of the line.
Okay, I know we pay all of your health insurance. We're paying it out of your visa. Is that what you're saying?
I pay for myself, we get a stipend.
They get a stipend.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's paid and then the payments get
And
taken
it's
out.
included on their W-2.
But you said it was 300 and then it went to 30,
$355 in December, $35.62 in January.
so
It's just, yeah, we've had this discussion. You had the quickest meeting that we've ever had 2 months ago, 50 minutes. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time, but we have talked about maybe an HSA or something like that, putting money into your HSA. That way, we don't have this just going back and forth. We just,
We'll have to look into that, $35.62.
I think one was probably the deposit for the year, because we go through the marketplace.
okay,
So we essentially get the healthcare stipend from the lake, but we're able to have the lake pay that, and then that gets reduced
But
from
this
our
was on
payroll.
This was on the Visa, that's what he's referring to, $35.62 was on the Visa card.
Correct, yeah, that is on the Visa, because we can't do direct payroll.
and the month before it
Bank
was
account
$355 on just the end of the year, the $350. So
Yeah, I think that was a deposit.
we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's not consistent.
So those were the highlights of the January expenditures. Then we have payroll that we paid out of $9,046 approximately. So I need an approval, motion to approve January
quick
claims.
question.
Yes.
This $4,700 now, what was that for? To check
We
interest rate?
paid Baker Tilly.
Baker Tilly has our compliance contract for the life of the bonds. And that agreement was signed when we issued the 2020 bonds for the $1.2 million. So as part of that, they have to do our arbitrage compliance, making sure that we have our money coming in, what we have as collateral for that's coming in, that there's no additional risks to the bonds. So essentially looking at our ratings there.
But they only have to do it once.
I think it was like a 3-year at that point they had to go through. But yeah, they said it would be a one-time.
So we don't. Now, how
That's
long's
it.
the bond gonna go on?
It was a 20-year bond, and I believe after 10 years, we were allowed to pay in advance, but for the first 10 years, we had to pay. There was a prepayment penalty, and after 10 years, we can pay more of that off.
Okay, and is this it seems like a lot of money to, is it pretty involved research?
That's just not
We-
that much
we-
money.
we
We're talking about
brought
being a
them in.
CPA firm.
At the very beginning with Ice Miller. So Ice Miller came in, Baker Tilly came in, and we were looking for the bond.
Yeah, okay.
From a regulatory standpoint, as far as having a professional accountant do it, it's not an unreasonable amount, yeah.
And Mike, and on that, if you're looking at the allowance of vouchers, the reported claims for January, if you go to the payroll section, under myself, you can see that reduction for that $399.14 right there.
Okay, so they take it out of your check and then you,
Correct, yeah, we pay it, we're allowed to pay it, have the conservancy pay for it, because then it's considered the pre-tax and then they reduce it from our payroll. So I'm paying for that. and it just gets
Personally.
Taken out, correct.
Thank you.
So, okay.
I'll make that motion for
January claims.
yes.
So moved by Mike, do I have a second? So Brett, okay, Brett's the winner for the second. Any further discussion on the claims? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 5, manager's report, starting with the equipment sales bid award.
All right, we advertise and put out bid requests for the large barge and push boat and a dump truck, the 1987 off-road truck. We didn't receive any sealed bids for the dump truck. We received 2 bids for the barge and push boat. One was from Jared Lucas in the amount of $13,255. And one was from Warner Marina LLC in the amount of $25,000. I went through that process. We opened up the bids on the date that they were supposed to be opened, and that video of the opening is on our YouTube page. At this point, I would recommend a motion to accept the $25,000 bid form from Warner Marina LLC for the large barge and push boat. And I do think that's one of the most optimal outcomes, because that means this piece of equipment will remain on the lake to be utilized. And then from that equipment, we also brought in rental income the 2 years that Heartland Dredging was using that as well. So we did bring in some income from that.
30,000,
30,000 the first year and 15 the second. So we brought in 45 from rentals.
$60,000.
Yeah, and then 25. So I think between the rental and that, we kind of got what we were hoping to get out of that, and it's on the lake. So I think it's pretty much an optimal outcome for the.
Do you feel like the work that they're gonna do,
$70,000.
that they're gonna charge what we would charge for it, or what, I mean, if they're gonna.
I mean, that would have to be up to them. I would assume it'd be comparable to what like the McCall or somebody else would do, or otherwise they'd lose out on business. But I think not having mobilization fees and that kind of stuff, but I can't speak on let them as a
What the
private
plan
entity would
is.
charge.
So they get to park it on the lake then, and
Correct, that's what I would assume is we would do, probably a commercial sublease like we do for the Port Hole or other areas to allow them to keep that barge at the disposal site there. And then part of what we have kind of promised moving forward with the dredging is that we would maintain a budget for disposal site prep to help keep sediment cleared out of the Possum Trot site. So we do have a place to put this, because we do want to ensure that we are able to continue doing that private dredging around the lake.
Because I am so pleased with that outcome, I would like to make the motion.
Motion has been moved. by
Second.
Malcolm And second by Mike. Any-
So they don't have any, we're responsible for keeping the area clear for them to put the material that they're charging to.
We have the 25,000 budgeted for each year for the disposal site that we would use for that. So we would not go above that amount for clearing out the site. Now, if they were to want additional capacity, we could definitely work with them to allow them to take out more material. So I don't picture us wanting to take on, subsidize this type of stuff, but we do want to make sure that we have a location for that sediment. So I think keeping that amount there will help keep that clear. And then the other disposal site they would be allowed to use is the Kenny Clark site. And that site, they actually do a very good job of getting rid of the sediment there. So we would not be paying for that. So I would assume that a lot of their work where you can get to that site would be placed there as well.
Well, this kind of brings up an interesting situation, because I really didn't think about how it interacts with us and us having to do some obligation and make some promises. Does this mean we're not gonna use McCullough?
I
I
think,
mean, what, is this for private?
well, that's for
dredging?
private, so
What is this
it's for private dredging. So we would not be part of it. as far as they're
But then why are we
bidding
making
work,
a
they're doing the
promise
work.
about spending $25,000 a year to somebody?
That was just to ensure that we would be
Is
able
this
to
verbal or
use
written?
verbal, but
I
I
guess.
mean, I think it'd be good to keep that clear.
When Shannon came
but-
down though, he placed material there.
I'm not saying we shouldn't keep it clear, but it would just seem, I mean, they're now a private contractor doing their own work. And I would think that a portion of what their income from the dredging they do should go towards keeping that site clear.
Right.
I mean, that would seem to be a normal business relationship versus us taking on full responsibility and sort of promising that space to them.
I feel like we need to kind of work out the particulars of that a little bit. more, Adam.
And we can, because there's not an agreement on that, but we do have the 25,000 budgeted for the disposal site work over there, which we have had.
I mean, we don't have to gouge them, but I mean, I feel like they should have some skin in the game versus just sort of
Yeah,
We're
so,
subsidizing.
other than the dock permit, I mean, they're not giving us any money then, right? I mean, because, I mean, like, let's say, take for example, a national park or a national forest, if you run an outfitter guide service and they're making money off of that public entity, they have to pay a percentage back to the government. And so they're making money off of us, the lake's public, they, you know.
With the McCullough dredging though, we did not make any money on that. And the reasoning during those discussions was that would be added to the cost to the freeholders.
Because we were finding out of the private.
And do you have the documents that showed that McCullough's gonna be on the lake? I mean, we did you did have some kind of
Right.
program, documents that stated, you know, what the fee was gonna be and that they were able to use the dump site.
So that's where we're just.
Yeah, we allowed McCall to use the dump site, but they set their own fees and then contacted all the individual homeowners and did all that. So we did not want to have the appearance of impropriety that we were trying to work with that. So we had McCall on their own, contacted everybody, set up all the jobs and did that. What we did do was spend that earmarked money for disposal site prep to move dirt from the Boston Trot site.
Do you think that I mean, I think I'd like to talk about that relationship a little bit more, but I think it needs a little bit more nuance than what we can probably do here and a little bit more info. Is them purchasing it dependent on, is your feeling that them purchasing it is dependent on that sort of verbal understanding?
I think, I mean, the way the bids were set up is a bid on the equipment, but I believe, yeah, they would like to
It changes the
use,
economics for
to
them.
use the disposal sites on
Well,
those, yeah.
We probably need to talk about.
And that would be something that we could come up with. an
We can-
agreement as far
We can, as a board, we can make the motion for that to be sold to him and then later on, before the summer gets here, make decisions on how that's gonna happen.
I don't think we can do that though, because once we make the decision to sell it to him, we have no strings attached to it, you know, and then we're like,
The disposal sites that we still have.
They don't have, there's no specific agreement as far as allowing them to or not to use the disposal site. So I think the board still has the leverage because, you know, they can't use our site without our
May
permission.
I enter the conversation?
I would like to hear him.
So we did submit with our bid, an addendum with the bid explaining that we're basically gonna continue the historical dredging that's been on the lake. You know, we gotta buy an excavator and a dump truck and all that. So the only feasible place to keep it is at Possum Trot site. And I think part of the deal with the Conservancy hauling the dirt, that dirt's gotta sit a while before it can be trucked off. And you probably get a better rate if we're doing it, you know, we'll just have to charge more. So we're serving lake residents, you know, doing it, we wanna keep the rates, you know, historical levels, what everybody's used to. And if now we're responsible for hauling the dirt off, and I think, you know, Adam's point, that dirt's gotta sit a while, and then you just run trucks like crazy and, you know, clear it out so it's available, you know, for future use.
And I do think that brings up a benefit where we could potentially see some savings as well, because currently we hire out an operator and the truck haulers to move all that. So if you guys had equipment to work together, I think we can do an additional operating agreement.
Plus, they
with
could
the
clean up
disposal
debris.
site that is not in conjunction. So right now, it's
So
just the
is that
sale of the
addendum to
piece
the
of the
bid?
barn.
Is that addendum to the bid? Has the board been provided with that, Adam?
I don't know.
That-
Okay, to clarify, you're the bidder then, right?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
see, I was trying to put this together.
So I even put in there that, like, we get to use the rock box there at Riddle Point for delivery of riprap, because it doesn't make sense, you know, for us to find an alternate site
Yeah,
and just bear more expense for, you
Well,
know,
that's
the
been
lake
our problem from the
residents.
beginning, besides where
And
to put the
it
dirt.
clearly says, conditions of sale, I understand that the equipment may remain on Lake Lemon under a negotiated agreement to perform dredging work on a biannual basis, minimum. So we can come up with something, but with District 6 and District 7 needing the dredging more than anybody else on the lake, I stand with Malcolm. I applaud Mr. Warner for buying the barge. I was interested in it, but I wasn't even gonna be close. I don't even know who Jared Lucas is, but this is exciting for people on the lake to have a company to come in. They are on the lake and, everybody uses his marina. So if there's no more discussion, I would make,
Where are you reading that from? Is it?
it's in his bid, Steve Warner's bid.
Under the conditions of sale for the bid, there was that I acknowledge equipment is being sold as is unless you purchase together for the barge and the push boat. And then the other qualifier that we put on there was that the equipment may remain under Lake Lemon under a negotiated agreement to perform dredging work. So we would authorize creating a contract to perform that dredging work. So I think that's where we could figure out the particulars of using the site. So at this sale as of right now is the equipment, and then it says we will authorize creating a contract for operating on the lake.
15 years ago, we were paying $9 a cubic yard, okay? And that thing it's astronomically gone up to, I don't even know what it is, Carol would know, but it's just crazy. And this is exciting for him to have that large barge. He will be able to clean up debris. Adam can hire him to clean up debris in that large barge, as much debris as we have coming in Bean Blossom Creek. So, unless there's any more discussion, I would make a motion that we approve the sale of the barge to Warner Marina LLC.
We already have a.
Oh, I'm seconding it.
Yeah, we already have a standing
All right,
motion.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on the question on the table?
Fine with the sale.
Is there a timeline on the negotiating agreement? Who's gonna be responsible for that?
I mean, that'd come back to the board for approval. I mean, that's something I believe we could do too with the bid, is that since there is interest in having this negotiated agreement saying that we authorize the purchaser with the condition that we will come back with a negotiated agreement.
Well, I kind of prefer, we put the conditions in with our bid. I'm not sure I would agree to any less than that.
So I mean, I guess the analogy would be a landfill, right? Like you're not, you have private disposal services that are gonna take stuff to a landfill, which is, generally gonna be a public, property. It's just, government run thing. So, but when you bring something in there, you have to pay for something for the amount that's going in there. And I understand the overall benefit of having it on the lake and everything, but we have no guarantee, like, we're given a guarantee that we're gonna clear this spot for you, but we have no idea what his rates might be. There's no, he could still, he's saying like, oh, I'd have to, increase it if I have to pay something there, but I don't know, it just feels like we're giving pretty loose reins to the whole situation. it just seems very favorable to one party and we're just kind of,
I would totally agree with you on that. I think we need to have it ironed out a little bit more.
You mean what he's gonna charge per cubic yard? Is that what you're narrowing
yeah, I mean,
this down to?
what we're saying is that we're gonna guarantee you this space with a
And this
verbal.
25,000, we're gonna clear out.
Yeah, with just a verbal of like, well, if you do that, then I can keep the rates down, but
But we could call McCulloch and McCulloch could come on the lake and then there would be competition. So I don't know.
And there already is, I mean, they can come anytime and do it.
Yeah, there already is competition.
And we would have to clear it out from McCulloch too.
And we don't have an agreement as far as like, we will keep this 100% cleared out, or this is what we clear out. Just when this sale aside, when we said that we'd be moving, the LLCD said we'd be moving away from the private dredging. We agreed that we would budget some monies to keep these sites clear to allow private contractors a place to place the dirt.
And we hold the permit, right? So I mean,
Correct,
some
yeah.
level, it is
Yeah.
our responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah. We have ultimate control. over
But didn't you
those
say if
sites.
it goes over a certain amount, then they have to pay? You said 25,000?
That's what we have total for our disposal site prep. Now, every year, that isn't necessarily all gonna go to removing sediment from that site. That's,
Well, and you're saying that's what we've done historically. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an annual thing where we approve a budget as a board.
correct, yeah.
And it's debris removal. It's not just sediment, it's debris removal. It's a whole concentration of things that we remove from the lake, not just sediment. So we put it up there and we dry it out and then we haul it off.
But
And this does
you're
not,
still doing debris removal, right? Our staff is still gonna do that. You
Yes,
want to
yeah.
buy a boat, so we don't do that.
like when McCall was on the water, we had them do a barge load as well, because they were digging an area and they had a longer reach. So we have worked with them in the past and paid them on a contracting basis to remove some debris.
And you just.
So this does not lock us into either what we would budget every year for that removal. There's no qualifiers that are saying we are going to spend X dollars per year. What he puts in with his bid is that they have access to the disposal sites, which they have to use.
Did you
because
send
they're
us that?
permitted
It's not
sites.
part of the board packet, right?
I'm not sure if I did.
I
Yeah.
don't, it's not part of this.
That's why I didn't even know.
If I could add,
Bidding.
if I could add, historically, like, I think the Conservancy was charging $2,500 for a barge load.
Using both barges.
Well, that equates to $25 a yard. When McCullough was down here 2 years ago, I know pretty well, because we spent 60 grand in the marina and it was about $27 a yard. So that's kind of a,
The large barge was 1,500. It was $15 a cubic yard. Using
how
both.
many years ago was that?
What was it? Probably 5 years ago. And then when we stopped dredging, which was probably 3 years ago, then all we had was the small barge, which went to about $25 a cubic yard. And then McCulloch was $35 a cubic yard, 40.
His
So-
tiny barge worked out at $40.
So, I mean, we would be happy to pay $25 a cubic yard for the large barge, because we know in certain areas of the lake, as long as we've been here, 100 cubic yards can clean out most channels. I know I'm not even supposed to say channel, but most coves. That large barge that, I believe that he's gonna purchase can do the work. And it does more than 4 times the work than the small barge, because it's only a 15 cubic yard hopper. This is a 100 cubic yard hopper. We've used, this barge has been on the lake since 2006.
And we would negotiate.
And so, as Malcolm said, this is an exciting time. We can work out the details later. But again, if we're gonna charge him more to use the disposal site or whatever else, that's gonna up the price on all the people in the east end that need his
It's
services.
not just gonna be East End, it's gonna start
I
being.
guess the
Yes,
I guess
thank
the
you.
Conservancy or the lake owns the sediment, we're just moving it.
That's right.
That's what we're getting paid to do,
Yeah.
is to move it. Now, one idea we have is that we're gonna investigate this process.
The question's been called, so we'll take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 For Those opposed?
I guess I'm opposed.
I guess I'm opposed. I don't
is.
think we have enough
No,
information.
I'm obstructed. I wouldn't sign this contract in my business, so.
No.
Okay, well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor, 5 in favor. I'll do an aye, so motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then under this, we'll negotiate an agreement for the usage.
We're not gonna break your record, Les.
All
And
right,
is there a timeline that you're gonna come back with that agreement to the board?
Next meeting.
yeah, that's it, the next meeting, there's something hammered out.
Easy for me to tell you that.
He's.
Add that to the action items list.
If I could just add, there is some expedience to it to get the dredging up and running, so the sooner the better. Because we're not gonna spend any money till it's, we got a final deal.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, please, and keep myself or Malcolm involved in these talks, because it affects our districts. And as he just said, it's gonna affect everybody's district here as time goes on. What's the word in perpetuity?
In perpetuity.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, we'll get in touch then and get something on paper. It's with that. All right, next up, we have a sublease authorization in District 2. This is in Debbie's district. I can pull up the location here. So we have had 2 sublease requests. This is in District 2 at the end of Darrett Road. That's right, 2 properties on Darrett Road right there. And then city land is at that south point. That's actually where the old home was located that was raised a handful of years back. So it would be a non-adjacent. We do have plenty of room there for the 2 subleases. And so I have talked with Debbie about this, and I have met the people on location about dock placement. So I would like to request a motion to.
Is this for
approve the
Scott and
placement.
Amy, or is this for,
This is for Amy Navarro and Scott Barker.
thank you, okay.
And they have the property adjacent, is that right?
Correct, yeah, they're on Darrett Road there, and they both have easements on Darrett Road
Building
to
new
the
house
lake,
right
to the
there.
city property.
Yeah, I know, okay.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from
I'll
Mike
second it,
and
yeah.
second by Malcolm. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion, opposed. Motion carries.
All right. Next, we have the amended resolution, which has come back a couple times for the meeting dates. This is essentially looking at to reduce the number of meetings that we have in a given year, especially in the off seasons, when we're kind of covering the same stuff over and over. This resolution essentially gets rid of the March meeting, the May meeting.
And we never had a
We never had November meetings, so really just the March and the May meetings. I have talked to the Bloomington Boys and Girls Club about the usage of their site from October through March. It is winterized, so we would not be able to use their site during those winter months. Why it is winterized. So outside of that, I mean, I think we do have 2 meetings here at the shelter house. The June and July, and then we have the August meeting and meeting back on out here because that is in the budget season, so we can have this technology and have people call in. So really, this is just reducing those 2 meetings for the year.
And the only problem I have is he was wanting something by March. We're not gonna have a March meeting if we approve this. So that means we won't have anything in April. He's ready to go to work. So do you think you can come up with some kind of agreement and pass it on to the board through email?
We can do that, and we could host, I mean, we can always add meetings, so we had an agreement, it's something that we need to knock out, and it's a 1-item meeting, as long as we give a 48-hour notice to the public, we're within the open door law, so we can work on this and get it approved prior to that meeting.
Yeah, this approval of this schedule doesn't preclude the board from calling special meetings.
Right, I know, it's just,
Good catch. Yeah.
All right.
uh,
We'll move to.
I'll second.
Moved in second to approve the,
Amended resolution 12/24/05, 2025 meeting dates.
any further discussion? See none.
moving to 4 o'clock.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, next up, the Brown County Community Foundation donor restricted gifting. This has kind of been a back and forth going with the Brown County. There was interest from the Solomon Harbor residents to earmark funding. The Brown County Community Foundation initially said they would allow earmarking of funding. That has since come back after talking with their board. And what they have said is that within the Lake Limit Enhancement Fund, they cannot, there's no mechanism to guarantee the usage of earmarked funds for dredging in a specific area because the fund is created so broadly. That being said, they stated anybody can create a fund with the Brown County Community Foundation. So the residents of Solomon Harbor can create their own fund that would actually have legal protections for the usage of those funds. And it would be very similar to the Lake Limit Enhancement Fund. Those funds do need to be requested by either a 501c3 or a governmental entity, just like the Lake Limit Enhancement Funds. So why they said there's nothing they can guarantee those funds being used within our fund. It is, you can create your own fund and then within the statement of purpose on that fund, you can dictate exactly how those funds would be. And then that way there is legal protection for the usage of those funds, and requests for those funds would only be able to go for those purposes.
When we set up the Brown County Fund, there was a $5,000 minimum, so I assume that applies here.
I believe the 5,000 minimum was to be an invested pass-through fund.
So that does or doesn't apply then?
Yeah, I'm not, I think the 5,000 was to be an invested fund, so I'm not sure there's a minimum, but I don't believe they would have an issue in Solomon Harbor coming up with 5,000 to create.
So, what was that lady's name again? That's okay.
Yeah, they're
Send it to me.
chief executive there.
And I've spoken to her nicely.
Yeah.
If we wanted to make a motion to the board and say, we want to use so much money, whatever it is, $10,000, hypothetical, and come out of the Brown County Fund, we would come to this board and ask for that. And you would call and you would tell her, say, hey, we have approved $10,000 to go to Warner LLC for dredging.
Correct.
We could do that today.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's not,
Whoa. Could you, I mean, when you put money in a community foundation, basically they approve these grants. I mean, you've put the money there and what you're saying is they don't think that our language on the current fund is tight enough, so that you actually, like, you can't restrict funds there, like they're not
No,
restricted
correct.
funds.
So if-
I just
If Mike was to come to our board has to approve any withdrawals and the usage of those funds. So
But the usage of the funds would have to be for a charitable.
they have to be used for the enhancement of Lake Limit.
Right.
If they had their own fund that they created,
Right, but he's saying if they come to us and then we take the money out of the existing fund.
that would have to be for usage that the board deemed for the benefit of the lake. Correct.
our channel fills in less than 10 years. I mean, it's got less than a 10-year life. And we're coming up on that next 10-year life. And we've built weirs, we've maintained it, we've set up things to stop the sediment from coming in, but Mother Nature wants to take back her lake. And I'm gonna go back to what he said whatever it was, a couple minutes ago. This isn't just gonna be our problem. It's gonna be a lake problem. It's gonna come to Les's and it's going to go to Steve's district.
Because the Monroe County residents pay 75% of the taxes too, so it is a whole lake problem. I get that, doing the channels is private dredging at this point.
I think I'm not sure this is relevant to our agenda item D. Like the agenda item D was the community foundation stating that Solomon Harbor residents could create their own fund that is earmarked for dredging in that area.
And then we're totally out of it.
Right.
No, we would have to, so if they were wanting to do dredging, it has to go to a 501c3. So if they raise money in their Solomon Harbor dredging fund and they wanted to use those funds, a government entity or a 501c3 has to be the recipient of those funds. So if Mike were to come and say, hey, we've raised $30,000 in our funds, we'd like to use that for dredging in Lake Lemon, he could come to the board and say, hey, we'd like to take out that money for dredging in that area. These funds have been earmarked for that. So I think in that case, it's benefiting the lake, it's dredging, but it's also earmarked money that they put into a fund. And that does not obligate the LLCD to spend any of our budget or anything like that.
Right.
And it makes it tax deductible. That's the whole point of this, right? Otherwise, they can just put money together, hire McCullough or Steve, and it's done.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that would be, the creation of that fund would be with those entities and the Brown County Community Foundation. Essentially, we cannot earmark money within our fund
Right.
for that. And that, all right.
It's
Thank
not
you.
uncommon to what we did when Mary Jane was here and a few years ago, can't remember the budget year, but we basically had a grant to ourselves for $40,000.
Correct. Yeah,
So.
yeah, so it'd be very similar to that.
Okay.
Okay, next we have the 2025 annual report. There is a PDF version, written report, a little bit different than the PowerPoint for information if you want to read through those bolded line items. But we're going to hit some of the highlights via PowerPoint for our 2024 operations. Okay, we'll do the 2024 Lake Lemon Annual Report, and Ross and myself will kind of tag team this as we go through. First off, our board of directors, 2 positions were filled in 2024. Brett Huber ran unopposed for sub area 3, and then Les Wadzinski won an election and was reelected to a 4-year term in sub area 5. The board officers for 2024 were Michael Klitzing, chairman, Les Wadzinski, vice chairman, and Deborah Ladyman, the treasurer.
Yeah, so this past year, we had a pretty darn good year at Real Point Park, I'd say overall. We started gatehouse operations March 17th, and a lot of times that's really tied to like when our first inning tournaments start. That's when things start to pick up. We ran gatehouse through November 2nd this year, and that's mostly on the weekends after the holidays. We're there during the week, and then we have folks there on the weekend. But I put this graph up, which is like the cumulative visitors to Riddle Point. I know a lot of times we look at like budgets, and how well we do on income, but I would like to sometimes take a step back because we're changing prices and look at like actual total numbers of cars visiting the park. And over the past 4 years, we've beat ourselves every single year, which is pretty good. I mean, I think some of that is we got a boost after COVID. I mean, if I put COVID on this, it's literally off the chart, like halfway through the summer. But people have returned and we've kept those people, which is a good sign. So Riddle Point Park opened May 17th, the weekend, I think 2 weekends before Memorial Day. I'm trying to remember when Memorial Day was. It's just so nice. It gets to a point where it's harder to keep people out than just let them in. And then we remained open the weekend after Labor Day because it was nice as well again. So total park admission revenue this year was almost $83,000. We sold a few less season passes, but we made up for that on our dailies by increasing, like beating our, overall total of that. And then watercraft permits have gone slightly down in whole numbers and in revenue the past few years. And I think really if you just start looking at Lake Monroe and some of the lakes around here, our prices are getting pretty competitive. So I think we've seen, I'm not sure if that's it. I mean, the increase in boat traffic that happened in COVID fell back off. The beach kind of saw that remain, and I'm not sure how to really explain that, but it seems like a lot of people bought boats and sold them.
Yeah, I do think that decreases. Everybody bought boats during COVID and a lot of people sold those off once the world opened back up.
Ross, can I ask, since I can't read it, is that years across the bottom and then total
This
numbers
is
going
like
up?
weeks, so this is every week, basically. So you can see like, where's a good, like weekend, weekdays, weekend, weekdays. You know, the big jumps are on the weekends, obviously, and then the weekdays. So you can see like 4th of July, some year, or Memorial Day, whatever this is. Like some weekends are typically really
Okay,
busy.
all right.
Yeah.
It's fun weather too.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I like the cumulative total, because, you know, every year you have different weekends that are nice and rainy, so.
What's YOY?
Year
Year over year.
Awesome. So just compared to last year. So, you know, when I came on, a big thing we talked about was trying to do more events at Riddle Point. And just kind of utilizing the park, more throughout the year. So in 2024, we had our 2nd annual polar plunge. We just had our 3rd annual polar plunge. It seems to be something that is getting colder every year somehow. But people are still showing up and having a good time. So that was a great event in 24. We were very lucky that we were in the path of totality for the eclipse. And I will go through some pictures of all these here in a second, but we had a great event for that. We had quite a few people in the park over that weekend and that Monday, and it was quite successful, I think, especially compared to some of the other regional events that were taking time during that period. 23 fishing tournaments, which was really, I think, pretty in line with the normal amount of fishing tournaments. The shelter house was running 23 times, which was up a little bit this year, which was good to see. And then we had our, you know, annual fireworks show. We raised almost $12,000 just on that one day. And then the one new thing that we did this year was in August, we did a cruise in. I just thought it was kind of a fun, interesting idea. I bought a couple packs of hot dogs and put some flyers out and put it on Facebook, and we had like 50 cars come and hang out in one park and chat about, you know, engines and fuel overhead cans and.
That was during the
Ate some
season,
hot
so
dogs,
all these
yeah.
vehicles are paying entry fee coming in too.
Yeah, so it's just Saturday afternoon, $11, and I'd like to see it happen honestly more often this summer, because it was actually a pretty fun little event. And then just kind of a non-event thing, but we did repave the boat ramp this year. It was getting pretty bad, so it's like from the edge of the cement basically to the pull-in on the boat parking area was repaved. That was in pretty rough shape. I know we've been trying to save a lot of that improvement fund for looking at larger projects, but that was definitely worth the money.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff, we are building up that cumulative conservancy improvement fund, because we have some stuff in the master plan regarding bathhouse renovations, potential docking, et cetera. So this year, we're trying to do a lot of park beautification without tapping into those funds. So through donors, we planted 5 different oak trees along the beach perimeter to create shade structures as they grow up. We've done a ton of shoreline clearing out shrub scrub, underbrush, cutting up trees. And then we're able to go out with our small barge where a lot of riprap had come down off our shoreline, and close to 300 feet of shoreline, we're able to re-riprap and fortify along the park. So just a big season of trying to do what we can with muscle labor around the park, but the park was looking better than ever. I think the people that were coming really were appreciating it.
And I will say, Riddle Point is very beautiful. The trees on it are very mature. There's been a tree fall every year on Riddle Point since I've been here. And if we don't replace those, there will be no trees on Riddle Point. You know, that's just how it works. So something to keep in mind. So we do have, yeah, so last year, it was windier than this year, but there was definitely less snow and the lake wasn't completely frozen over. Yeah, I'm not sure how to make these.
I'm not sure why it's so choppy, but this was the polar plunge, and I believe we had close to, it was like 75 people
Yeah, we
in
had
the
like
water.
almost 80 people show up. And the beach was like solid. I mean, it was totally.
Was this
frozen.
from 24?
24,
This
this
is
is last
24.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They had to bust the.
So this year, we
Yeah.
had to bust the ice and everyone had to run down from the shelter house through 14 inches of snow, which was.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and this year we did have scarves as well, which we did have
Yes.
for sale, but yeah, so the turnout's been great for that. I think it just really brings the community together, and it's brought a lot of people out that previously didn't even know about Brittle Point Park. So after the first one that we did, some of those people came back for like the boogie and then for other events at the park. They did not even know that we existed. So not only is there some money being raised from that, we let people know about the park, and we have some retention there.
Yeah, EMS comes every year too from the county fire territory, whatever.
Mhm.
So it's just a fun, pretty easy event to do and I enjoy it a lot. And then, yeah, April 7th and 8th, we did the eclipse. We were very lucky to have some volunteers from the lake who have astronomical experience and equipment that, once we saw the weather, committed to coming out and helping us out. So we had, crafts in the shelter house, camping on the adjacent point and the main point. We had RVs on, and really, we did quite well on this event. Honestly, I was pretty happy with how it all turned out and the feedback that we got from it. It kind of fell out of the sky, so to speak. But I think we did a good job with it and it was a lot of fun.
And that was the first time that we've allowed camping, since a long time ago, and they had full season camping at the park. So we had RVs out there and then campsites, and Ross and myself on the property 24 hours during that event. Went incredibly smooth, and it was just such a beautiful location. It's great to see kind of everybody out there utilizing the property. And while we didn't bring in the 90,000 we're hoping for, I think we cleared 30 on it. And the sheriffs that were driving around said we were the most concentrated event that was going on between Bloomington and Brown County. I want to say IU with all their operations ended up losing a couple $1 million that they came in under their budget from all the expenses. And then Nashville turned out just being a ghost town. I think it was just rows of porta potties and no people there. So I think the advertising that we did, we kind of advertised all across the nation. And I would say over 95% of the people were from outside of Indiana that came from that. So we had people from
Yeah, I mean, we
England
have
and all the coasts.
a presentation we did right after this, but we had someone from Washington, someone from Maine, someone from Florida. So pretty much and everywhere in between.
Yeah, this will probably be choppy again, but this is actually a really cool video that we took with a drone. So you can see all the RVs parked on the actual point. And we had the middle area by the shelter house set up for our viewing areas, and then the camping. So it's actually pretty cool to see the park utilized in that fashion for an event. And then it definitely brought in as a good revenue generator.
I will interject that I got messages from some people in my district that are concerned about the camping. I kind of assured them that we weren't gonna start back up and allowing camping, that I thought that we had the appropriate security, et cetera, for these couple of events.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring that up.
We are not opening a camper.
No.
Yeah, no. And I think part of the issue historically was there was campers like on the point that, Kirk was wrong, like actually building like docks and infrastructure and kind of year-round camping. So we're looking at, one, potentially two events that we would have camping, but it was just so cool to see all the people out there. Everybody was so thankful. It was just a great crowd that we had out there for that. And then just the Lake Limit
Yeah.
cruising that Ross mentioned, I think how many cars ended up?
I think there
showing?
was like between 40 and 50 cars. And it was, I really enjoyed it. I have an old Volkswagen, so I brought it out and there's a lot of square body trucks in Unionville, believe it or not. So there was a big group of truck guys there
And they were all very interested in having this potentially as a monthly item.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people didn't know about Lake Lemon or they came out, but being during the season, every single person that came was paying entry fees for the vehicles. So we were bringing in, money on a day that otherwise wouldn't have much going on. So for the park improvements, kind of mentioned some of those, the ramp cleaning, the donated oak trees, and those were donated by residents around the lake on the park. And we had talked about shade structures along the park with maintenance. The oak trees are very nice. During the summertime, they have shade, and then during the wintertime, they kind of let the sunlight through. So it'll be nice to have some of the large
Yeah,
trees there.
busy days on the beach. I don't know if you've ever driven by on your boat, but that one poor sycamore tree has like every adult on the beach sitting under it.
We
So
need shade
I think they'll be,
structures.
happy for some additional shade.
So our conservation officers, they were more active this year than they had been, it seems like for the past couple of years. 72 tickets were issued by the conservation officers, 36 warnings and 36 citations. I have been working with the captain in this area, Angie Goldman, and they have put out bids to bring in a dock and place another dock behind the office there. So they're looking at this year to actually have a dock and keep a boat on Lake Lemon full-time. That way they don't have to trailer in and out. I think they were a little bit understaffed in their ranks for a handful of years there, and they're back up to staffing and got some funding. So we should be seeing a dock and a full-time conservation officer boat on the lake this year. And I am all for that. It's great to have them out there, especially on these busy weekends.
Where will that dock be?
It'll be behind, in our equipment cove behind the office there.
What was the nature of most of the tickets?
Fishing violations, and then.
Like you don't have a license or
Yeah.
something? Oh,
Or over limit, and
Yeah,
then
no life jacket.
life jackets on stand-up paddleboard. If you're on your stand-up paddleboard in the lake, you have to have a life jacket with you. That's the law.
Yeah.
yeah.
On the 4th of July or the fireworks day, there's a couple people paddleboarding out there that.
Well, I've seen.
CEOs
people out
came
there
and
from
picked
our
them up
place.
and took them off the lake there.
It's a little scary.
Yeah, but I am excited to have them come back out, and they have been increasing their activity, and they do actually have officers now in the area that are dedicated to the kind of near the Lake Lemon region.
So do we get to tell them like the hours that they're coming out, or will you hammer that out?
We'll work with them, but no, they kind of dictate their hours. I think their biggest things are holidays and busy weekends. And then I'm sure they'll be out a lot when the fishing tournaments come out. I think they try to pick like when they're gonna be the most impactful. I still don't picture them out middle of the weekdays very much. But on the weekends is when we really do need them.
What, how much does that cost you if you get a ticket? Cause they're just trying to kind of get their revenue.
I've never gotten one, so I don't know. I'm not positive on that.
I don't know, like a life jacket ticket, is that like $50? I don't know.
$141.
141, all right.
There you go.
So 141 for that.
That's for a ticket, not a citation.
I was just curious. I mean, it's good. It keeps things safer.
It does, and honestly, for the non-residents coming in and out, just the visual impact of having the conservation officers boat at the public ramp there. Puts on a really visual.
Yeah, they always
perspective.
park their truck right at the office, so if you're launching a boat, you have to see it.
Yeah.
So just a quick question. So when they're not there and we're doing like patrol, one of you two is doing it, do you have the right to? Will you check people's life jackets and will you do things like that?
Yeah, we do. That's one of our biggest things is
Okay.
skiers without spotters,
Okay.
or without life jackets.
Okay,
Youth, I mean,
You
it
thought
hasn't been
that's-
as bad this past year, but
yeah,
you get 12-year-olds out there on supercharged jet skis. We have brought a couple
Right.
back to their homes and off the
Right.
skis, and we'll check that they either have a license or their motor safety course. So we're primarily looking for safety and then
Right.
making sure they have our passes.
Right, you
Thank
can't
you.
issue tickets, so.
Yeah, I think it'd be a headache to be able to do that, but having the officers out there on a higher frequency, I think would be nice for that.
Aquatic control, once again, did aquatic plant management for us this year. We had a lot of milfoil this spring and we did spray more than we have in the past. I think it was pretty effective, but so our bill this year was, I can't remember which we budgeted, I think 50K. So we were still under budget. but it was a little bit more than it has been in the past. But these are the areas we treated for milfoil. We did treat all of the lotus line as we normally do. Some of that was reduced because they had gone through with the dredge and dredged all that up. But we continue to get calls about lotus and milfoil and really leaf pondweed and primrose, and we, treat those as necessary.
Yeah,
If it's impeding recreation.
we spent $14,000 more this year.
Yes,
Than we did the year
I think it was like
before.
30,
It-
yeah.
31 versus like
Yeah,
36.
There's a lot of reasons.
The
that-
Priscilla core, you generally get like a 2-year kill off that in areas too, and then a lot of it is based on the rain. So I think this past year, it was kind of drought conditions in the springtime, then it got wetter as we went on. So when you have like that light penetration early on, it just explodes that vegetative growth. But we budget every year not to go over $50,000, and we've been able to stick under that for as long as we've been having the contracts. With our lake limit enhancement funds for the Monroe County Community Foundation, our 2024 beginning balance was $111,343. The 2024 ending balance was $119,670. In Brown County, the 2024 beginning was $44,699, and the 2024 ending balance is $50,034. If we ever want to use those for, we can really use that for anything. It's written broad enough for the enhancement of the lake, so it potentially could be used for help with the bathroom remodel once we build up some funding in the cumulative conservancy fund, or really with anything, but we wouldn't use those willy-nilly. I think the only other time we took out a grant was to help with the dredging, to offset that cost. The first year we did hydraulic. For the 2023-2024 revenue comparisons, the special benefits tax decreased in 9.1% in Brown County and increased 6.1% in Monroe County. That's primarily tied to the assessed values. Although I do think Brown County assessments from 24 going into 25, they're starting to take a page out of the playbook from Monroe County. So I do know assessments have been going up there. As we mentioned earlier, going through the December finances, we hit our revenue goal, 99.6% of our revenue goals. So with all the projects going on, I think that was pretty exceptional to be within 0.4% of our revenue goals. And then we're actually under budget on our expenses by a little over 7%. Our total tax revenue for the special benefits tax was up 1.9% between 2023 and 2024. Again, that's based on the assessed value. We have a requested amount of money for the special benefits tax, was $850,000. We request that, they look at the total assessed value and they come up with that rate to get that funding to us. For 2024 going into 2025, our rate actually decreased right about 15% because the assessed values went up, but our requested amount of money remained the same. So the higher amounts that you're paying in property taxes are going to the county. That is not coming to the Conservancy District. For the cumulative conservancy fund, and that was up a total of 6.9%. We brought in 46,512 in Monroe and 15,072 in Brown County. When we're looking at our 2023 versus 2024 non-tax revenue, we're actually up 6.5% from right about 400,000 to 425,000. The watercraft permits were down. That's primarily what we were seeing in non-resident and especially non-resident daily. I think we're kind of at a price level where people are being either selling boats or they're going to Lake Monroe where.
What is your price?
For the year,
For the daily pass.
daily is 22,
And then I believe the state parks,
35 for the year.
and then for all the state lakes combined, yeah, so
For
their
DNR.
annual is 35 for Monroe. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing. Then we do have a lot of people ask about that, but we do not receive funding from DNR or the state. We're, just our user fees and our special benefits tax. That's why we do have to keep The cost at that level, that's also why we're not overrun like Lake Monroe is. So there's pluses and the negatives that I know most people around the lake would like not to see, jam-packed out there on a day-to-day basis. Again, with the launch fees are, if you're a resident, you're not paying the launch fees. So that decrease in launch fees is from the non-residents with the annual launch fees and the daily. Wakeboards was down 0.6%, so pretty much flat across the board on that. Marina club fees did increase 7.1%. That was really from our rate increases. Everything went up about 7% across the board from 23 to 24. So that was really due to our fee structure going up. Sublease and access fees up 3.6%. We have actually had an increase in the amount of subleases. We are don't have a whole lot of extra room to place additional subleases, and I think people are starting to realize that. So folks that do not have docking have been kind of coming out to try to get subleasing. And that's one of the reasons that we brought the approval of non-adjacent subleases to the board. So we are becoming, pretty tight on ability to place new docks. The interest income was up 352% from 6,400 to 29,300. And that was because we created a high yield account with our People's State Bank that automatically moves money into that account. I believe we have to keep 200,000 in our checking and the rest automatically goes into that high yield account. And that kind of evens itself out throughout the year. We also had the majority, we started out with $75,000 in a CD for our Cumulative Conservancy Improvement Fund with the First Insurance Bank. So we kept, what was that?
First Internet Bank.
First Internet Bank, sorry. The First Internet Bank, FIB. So we did have that money in there for the year as well. So it was great to finally start getting some interest income on those funds that we have. Grants and donations, look down. Also, we separated, it's a little misleading. In 2023, we were still including the funds brought in by the fireworks and grants and donations. In 2024, we moved those funds to our special events because we actually created that special events line item. And a lot of that can be seen in the next line item where we did bring in $41,000 in 2024 in special events. So that's above and beyond. About 30,000 of that was from the Eclipse event. Fishing tournaments, we're up a little bit. We raised fees on that. What was that?
I guess I thought there was pretty similar numbers, but I guess we had more.
Yeah, we brought up, and the fees did go up and we did have more in there. Park reservations, were down. But again, that has been moved into the specials. Under park reservation, we used to have, if people wanted to host a special event, we've since created fees for on-lake events and for special events in the park. So those are budgeted.
The other reason that 23 was so high is the Dale England Cup was 2 days and they did a scrimmage event. So there was a significant income from IU's rowing team having more than their traditional amount of days on water.
And I believe in 24, we did the historical cost of Dale England, I think it was $500 a day, and we raised that in 2024 to $1,300.
No, that's 23, we raised it, and then we kept it.
And then raised that.
Yeah, so that's why 23 was really high. We had raised it that year, and then they did like 4 days of it. So
Okay.
it brought in a lot of money that year.
And then the other income, that was from sale of equipment from the old dozer and the large excavator. So overall, our total revenue went up 6.5% for our non-tax revenue in 23 and 24. And then hopefully this year, we'll continue to see an increase in that because we are trying to do more events and bring people in.
But I think we need to understand, as you pointed out, and I heard from some of my freeholders, just that it takes a lot of time and effort for you guys with kind of marginal results. And so I think we have to really continue to look at that and keep a balance on that. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
and it creates confusion for freeholders and things like that. So for right now, for 2025, you've got the boogie event in May, and we just did the plunge. And of course, 4th of July is always, so
Correct.
do we have anything else?
We are looking at doing a one-day country music, not necessarily with camp or anything, a country music at the beginning of October. So we're looking just to kind of hit a couple different genres.
No camping, just.
Correct, yeah, it's a day of, because we have a handful of artists around the area that have expressed interest in coming out and help raising money for the lake. So we're looking at doing a country music festival in October at the beginning of the month.
Cruises?
I wanna do those again this summer.
But is that considered special events?
No, well, no, because they just come in on.
Well, it kind of is. I mean,
Yeah,
you've gotta have.
but the money doesn't go to a special event line item because they're just paying to get in the park.
Right, but you probably have like food trucks and stuff and they pay a
We
percentage.
didn't the first time, but yeah, we could.
And they did request that.
Part of the reason is I was trying to think of
You
as.
wanted to take your Volkswagen.
Yeah,
somewhere.
no, I wanted to think of like if you're a resident and the polar plunge is happening on January 13th, like I don't think you even know, or unless you're coming to it, like I don't think you're in your house and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so loud as people are screaming, jumping in the lake. And it's like almost we buy hot cocoa, you know, the cruise in, I printed some flyers and put them at a couple restaurants in town, like it was like $15 of investment, and I'm gonna be there that Saturday anyways, so.
Right.
I'm trying to think of some larger events that do bring in more money that require investment, but also very low impact to the lake and low impact to the staff.
And just familiarize people.
Yeah, and just
I
get
know
people
you
out
guys
here.
have that in mind. I just want to bring that up because I
Yeah.
specifically heard that.
Yeah, I mean, especially last year, the eclipse took a lot of time, with the hydraulic dredging going on. So this year, if we pull off, 2 music events and some of these other that's probably about the limit that we can
Okay.
hit without having like
Yeah.
a development person. Next, one of the biggest things, the lakeland enhancement and sediment management. The 2024 dredging was completed by Dredge America. The initial contract price was for $995,000 and 125,000 yards. After we did the final survey, we actually ended up removing 141,000 yards once they came back and did the bathymetric. So they went over the total amount by it's almost 17,000 yards. Yeah, 17,000 yards. Some of that material was below the 623 mark. They actually had a threshold that could go as deep as 7 feet. Below that, they couldn't bill out. So they came back and actually requested a change order to the contract for close to $70,000. The billable yardage within the range that they could hit came out to 137,184. We're actually able to negotiate and work with them a little bit to where they cut that in half. So we did do a change order for about $30,000, and then they kind of ate the cost for that additional, just to kind of garner, future respect if we work with them again. So it was really nice working with them on that. And that 141,000 yards does not include the private work that they did as well. So it's definitely one of the reasons why we were able to maximize that disposal site.
7.5 bucks a yard.
So these are the areas that were dredged during the 2024 dredging. I know you really can't see the numbers there, but the coloration shows the elevation change. So the yellow is approximately a 4-foot change. They're taking out 4 feet of sediment. The light orange was 3 feet, and then the dark orange is 2 feet. And that means they were adding that additional footage. That's how much sediment they actually took out. So with the dredging that we did in 22 and 23, these were the areas that we were able to hit. Total yardage removed between 22 and 24 was 276,000, so over 250,000 yards that we had removed in those 3 years, and approximately 80 surface acres that were reclaimed to boatable depth through these projects. And over 430,000 yards have been removed total for the history of our sediment removal program. And, you know, over 65% of that was just in the past 3 years. So it definitely costs money, but it is pretty remarkable to see the amount of area that we are reclaiming and to actually see real progress. We have begun talks with Aquatic Control that does our vegetation testing, so I'm waiting to hear back on the actual timing for our bathymetric survey. Part of this was after this year, we can do our survey, we can get that data to the engineers and kind of look at where we're at, what sediments come in since we did that 22 and 23 dredging. See if those rates have changed. Then also it's time to get a full lake bathymetric. So we'll be able to look at the rate of sedimentation and how that's changed across the entire lake. So this is
The money that we spent.
Correct.
How quickly has it?
Yeah, so we'll be able to see how, and it's it's kind of a two-edged thing is some of the areas where we dug out, I mean, we took out the sediment and there will be more sediment came in there, but part of it was to consolidate where it is too. So hopefully we don't have to keep doing the projects on that level and we can focus on more of a concentrated area and capture the sediment. So we will be doing the full bathymetric survey of the lake this springtime. We'll provide that data and then we will add that into all of the modeling for the sediment transport with Christopher Burke Engineering. So that'll be pretty exciting to see. Here's some pictures. I know we did touch on some of this throughout the year. This is actually the barge when they were trucking it in to Brittle Point Park and brought the crane in. If you're out on your pontoon boats, it's pretty interesting looking because across the whole lake, you can see that crane sticking out above the trees in Brittle Point Park. It was a big operation that all came on 3 semis just for the barge and then all those semis for the piping. And we did launch it at Brittle Point Park. This is actually what the dredge looked like right before they launched it and the piping. Each of these sections of pipe were 500 feet long that they would fuse together on the land and then pull out into the lake. Here's when they demobilized. You can definitely tell the beat in the barge started dragging through the sediment. Came in brand new and it definitely looks used and they take their barges off every winter time, but this was the removal of the barge. And then we have the sediment overflow pond, which we maxed out the capacity on that. We were initially estimating around 150,000 yards and we hit that between our work and the private work that was placed there. We also awarded a bid for the wetland mitigation project that was awarded to Davie Resource Group. That's for the wetland design, construction, and monitoring for that overflow pond. That pond, we have gotten signed off by the City of Bloomington Army Corps. It will be placed into an environmental easement in perpetuity, so it will remain a natural spot. With the wetland design, Davie will place 1,000 native plugs, which are live plants throughout there, and then seed the 17 acres. They will group those around for where they find best and based on the depths. The construction will actually be the planting, the seeds, they'll install boundary markers. And then monitoring as part of our permitting process, we do have to do monitoring and an annual assessment report. So we have a minimum of 3 years monitoring that we have to report to the state. After 3 years, they can deem the project a success, in which case it can just stay natural. If they deem it not a success, we have up to 5 years to get that to be deemed a success, meaning the diversity, how much plants are there, the water, the coverage. There's a lot of different stipulations that go into that. And then annual reports have to go out. I did have a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago with the project manager and the branch chief from Davie Resource Group. They came down. They were very excited for this project. It's very visible and they both couldn't wait to see how it develops over the next couple of years. One of the things that they were excited about in the initial plans and in the bidding included vegetation for the shoreline around the area for stabilization. But since it's the highway and it's riprap around there, they think instead of saying, oh, we can make more money on this, they both went, oh, we can buy a lot more plugs with that money we're not spending on bank stabilization. So it was very nice to have them out there and kind of pick their brains. And they said they think that will turn into a very beautiful spot over the next couple of years. So it was good to see their enthusiasm out there.
They were also pretty impressed with the seed bank at the upland site that's come up. Like when we took them up there, they're like, oh, who did this? And you're like, Mother Nature.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's definitely a different ecology there, because it's not elevated and part of it's not completely dry and like the other part has a lot more depth.
What
But-
are you talking about?
Where we place the sediment the first 2 years in the upland basin.
Oh, up
Yeah.
there.
There's
All those
obviously
trees.
natural seed bank there that
Trees
came
in
with
there.
the sediment and it's,
And then,
so we took them up there to look at that.
you really couldn't have asked for the dredging worked out so well as far as using that pond, with the slurry, it just settled great and created all these kind of micro variations in topography. So we have some pretty shallow areas, which I think will be great for shorebirds and bird habitats, and you have little micro variations in the elevation. So I think they can really play with those in the design of the
Nice.
vegetation. So pretty exciting to move forward on that. And then one last thing, we do have the Riddle, we were talking about events. We have our Riddle Point Boogie coming up on May 10th. It would be a one-night event and we'll be having camping for that one night. We've already started selling camping and RV passes. Everything's up. We are looking for sponsors and we'll continue to advertise and solicit sponsors for that as we move forward. And then the next event that we are kind of working on and hopefully we can do for a little bit less overhead with local country artists as we're looking for the, on October 4th, the 10-4 Country Music Festival. So I think the name will be pretty fun. So we're looking at that for another event as well. So we're gonna try to bring in some revenue and get some people out to the lake and we're pretty excited able to focus a little bit of effort on that since we don't have the other large overarching projects going on with the dredging. Thank you.
Any further questions for
questions,
Adam on the annual report?
I'm wondering, and maybe this goes to the list of things to do, but as I talked to my freeholders, it kind of, we haven't had an update on our whole sewer septic, for a while. And that remains to be
For the Brown
an
County?
issue. And,
Oh.
yeah, and well, and
Yeah.
just because we talked about, do we make people around the lake get it tested, because it does impact water quality and we might want to in the future put some sort of a water quality thing in your.
So I will say this
report,
isn't
just 'cause
like-
I know we get that done all the time.
Yeah,
but just, and then, the other thing was, we kicked around looking at wakeboard rules at other places, and some of my freeholders have had damage done with those wakeboards, the waves coming in, even bending their pontoon boat, I mean, they're.
Yes,
Yeah.
We don't pay for our short
Shorelines.
barrel. That's right.
Where are we at on that? And
So we will have the water quality report from IU at the summer meeting, she'll come in and do the annual report from the testing. And that has been brought up a handful of times requiring testing around the lake, and we are authorized to do that. Cordial Sweetwater does it by district, so it's on a 5-year basis and they have to, so through a board resolution, we have the power to
we
implement.
talked about it at
The
the
test.
at one point, but I
Yeah.
don't want it to fall off. And then we got that whole issue with the trailers and the Brown County thing and the sewer project. So to me, that's,
Yeah, so if there's appetite on the board, we can definitely move forward with providing the testing. I have not heard much about the Brown County sewer project. It seems to,
I've seen Clint just at the Bean Blossom Watershed Management Plan meetings. And I have talked with the head of that and as well as some of the other folks on the board about we are required to do public meetings as a part of that. Either doing a public meeting or an outreach meeting at the shelter house where we do talk about the Bean Blossom Watershed Management Plan and how it interacts with Lake Lemon and what we've done to affect the watershed.
we had a presentation, I don't know if it was within 24, but somebody came and really
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah, that was
septic
Clint.
systems and
Yeah.
they're failing. and
I
this
would
and
not
that. So what
hold
do we
your
need to
breath
keep it?
for the Brown County. I think with the
Let me
state
take a
of
look.
federal environmental grants currently and what they were hoping to do, I'm hopeful that it would happen at some point. I'm not optimistic that it's gonna happen anytime soon.
I was talking to Clint couple weeks ago. The engineering is done for, I think, the expansion of the Helmsburg plant and all of that, that's the engineering paperwork, you know. There is somebody that is now on the Brown County Board or supervisors or however the governance works, that's dead set against putting in sewers, and he's like making it very difficult.
Hmm.
That and the funding issue has thrown this into limbo for the moment.
What happened to the trailer park? And
So,
getting in trouble with the. health
Through the
department?
grapevine, and I believe the health department was coming down and getting ready to red flag that. I believe it's transferring ownership and they are requiring all the trailers to be moved and new septics put in.
That sure
So
would be nice.
I think we will over the next year or so see
Be moved, like.
just putting new septics and then requiring all the trailers there to put in functional septic systems.
So a lot of the homes there are on.
Well, anyway, a further
Yeah.
update on
Yeah,
that for the
yeah,
board would be
absolutely.
good. And then what about approvals? Because we looked at that, like, wasn't it like 100 feet from shore or?
Yeah, so we did ours, like the be wake cool thing,
Right.
I mean, it's tough, I mean, if the board wants to proceed with limiting, like the number, we have full authority on what we allow and the numbers that we allow on the lake. I have heard increasing numbers of complaints about damage to docks and shorelines. And these boats are just not designed for lakes this big. Currently in Greene County,
Places.
Lagodi, where.
Lagodi, the state rep in the Boggs Lake area right now is working on a House bill for wakeboarding that would limit the use of wake boats based on depth and size of lakes. It's not the first time it's happened. A couple years ago, there was a House bill proposed that got shut down during the session at the State House. We'll see if this one goes further, but not being a public DNR lake, we have full authority over reducing that.
How many boat boards do you think we have?
Well, I counted them at one time, and what was it?
How many got paid?
Well, we had, yeah, I was gonna say, you could look
Permits.
at how many we had
Yeah.
paid. I think it was
Oh,
in
is
the
that-
30s. I remember I
That's
wrote
a
50.
real lot.
It's increasing every year.
Yeah, let me throw this out.
Because I know this is you're passionate about this.
Well, yeah, 'cause, Sweetwater and Cordray have banned them. I checked their, or watched their video minutes and stuff, because I knew they were having a referendum, and I think it was like 2-1, 100 for, 200 against.
Mhm.
And so they're just flat out not allowing it. Now, they will still allow the, not with the big waves, but instead of using a ski, you're just on a board.
Wake surf, wakeboarding.
Yeah.
or-
Well, yeah, I guess it's technically wake surfing is
Okay.
banned. And they don't allow the boats to use the ballast.
Mhm.
They have to be disconnected or whatever. And, so they're done. They're not doing it.
Yeah, they make, if you have gates, they make you take your gates off. They don't allow any suction, wave shaping. or
Yeah,
anything like that.
and by gates, it's like a,
It's literally a gate. It's just on the back of your boat and it's hydraulic and it opens up and it's just a plow.
to make a wave.
And there are some sessions at the upcoming Indiana Lakes Management Conference regarding that. A lot of the schools that have been doing studies on it, I mean, it is detrimental. That amount of energy coming off those boats just destroys the benthos and vegetation of lakes.
Or just the fish.
That's,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's, our grandkids are like 1 and 3, and we have a beach that faces west. And every time they come by, it actually slams them to the ground. I've never seen it like
right.
that. I brought this to the board a year ago, and Oregon, Vermont, and Wisconsin have banned huge areas in their whole state. And if the whole state can do it, it seems like Little Lake Lemon can do it.
Yeah, we should do it.
I mean, it's completely plausible to do a referendum or kind of poll everybody about that type of thing. We have the authority to control what type of vessels
I
are on
think
the
we
lake.
need to, like, really specifically have like some of this research summarized or some of the damage and things like that, because there's probably a lot of people around us, my neighbors too, that have spent a fortune on these big votes, you know, and it's gonna be a tough balance, but
There are only 30 of them,
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's 300.
How many houses on the
there's
lake?
500 and some free.
And there's 30, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I can actually reach out to our Indiana Lakes Management colleagues and see if I could have somebody come here and give a presentation
Yeah.
on their studies.
How often are day passes?
2 days ago, I sent a list of
Yeah,
things to
I
the
saw that.
office
Oh, you did? Okay.
of problems that.
And I
it
collected,
creates.
it's been about a year
Not
when we were first talking about, maybe more than that, but I collected the existing data at the time too, and I had several papers that I passed around and
Well, it's horrible the way
stuff.
it
It's
comes
probably
in.
more now. There's.
And
I'm sure-
Wisconsin, it's either Wisconsin or Minnesota did a very interesting in the past year about fish
Wisconsin.
habitat and the changes they've
That
seen
would
in
be
grass
good.
beds.
That would be good if we could hang it on some environmental
Mhm.
shit.
Yeah.
But even if you have bumpers on your docks, I mean, it's still like,
What about guys?
Well, I even heard from the marina, I mean, they're making money because brackets are busting and docks are busting and.
Yeah, ours.
Yes.
Yeah,
3 times.
3 times. We've had every boat.
Our
Sheared
boat
off.
almost tipped over from them.
Yeah. Well, and all your buoys on the
Guys from
lake
Morrison,
keep breaking off.
They done anything.
Yeah.
They allow it as far as I know.
So there's no restriction, that could be used as a precedent. So,
Can I just ask, how often are we getting day passes on?
We have,
Is there-
I would have to look. And we have, I know a couple that comes down that has one, they come infrequently. I know it's happened a few times, I don't know. I think a lot of times when they
Did you
come
get it to the
in,
marina?
we told them how much it's gonna cost to bring their wake boat, and they're like, oh, we'll do it today, and then we'll go to Monroe again.
Yeah, it showed them off. I would say there's like 2 public boats that I see that will come in
Yeah.
on occasion throughout the summer. It's primarily 95+% resident.
what do you think about it?
I don't like the lake boat,
Yeah.
so
Can we get
it's one of those where I think at minimum, what you might do is like,
Wisconsin has
while you're doing,
pages and reports.
this is a recommendation because I'm going off the board at the end of this meeting. But one of the things that you might consider
Get done
is.
what you wanna get done.
Exactly,
right?
is at minimum, don't allow any additional ones on
I
it while
think
you're
I'll have
studying it,
this.
so the
Yeah.
problem
It's
doesn't.
Oregon, Vermont, and Wisconsin.
And then,
Oh,
and day passes, you can certainly say,
No, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that would be an option, is to say we're not allowing any new registration.
oh, yeah, we haven't started over our.
Is there anything that I need to vote on? Cause I have to go pick up a child.
It's been way too
No, I
no further votes.
Well,
Well,
They-
awesome. Let's wrap this
Yeah,
up,
let's-
sorry.
And they just make it so fun, just for fun.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
not- they make up the dots like.
Do I need to be here for it or is it?
Well, no, well, I don't know. We have to
Be the next chair.
Yeah.
Be the chairman.
If you leave
Could
it,
it
vote.
goes off.
So why don't we do that at the end?
Yeah.
So I'm going to defer, if I can. Yeah. We're gonna defer the draw until. We're gonna do the election results and swearing of oaths, which will be my last action as board member and board chair, because as soon as I swear Dave in, I'm no longer on the board. So first for the election. I want to thank Carol Gentry, David Keough, and Kathy McClure for serving as our clerks. Thank you so much for your work and service. We have a tie. So 13-13 for both Stephen Freeman and Stephen Warner. I have been, if it looks like I've been a little bit distracted, it's because I've been trying to see what you do in the case of a tie, and I can't find it. And state law doesn't talk about it as far as it pertains to conservancy districts. So we're gonna have to confer with the Lake Lemon Conservancy District attorney to determine where we go from here. So that one is to be determined. And we'll
If
determine
Steve
that
would have shown
at a
up.
subsequent meeting. I do ask Dave to come forward and I will administer the
Yeah.
oath of office, and then you can do your election. So the District 1, which is the area that I serve in, I chose not to run for reelection, was uncontested, so he didn't have to run. So just got the paperwork. So if you would repeat after me the oath of office, which I did just validate, is exactly as written in state statute. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I shall, to the best of my ability,
that I shall, to the best of my ability,
strive to accomplish the purposes
strive to accomplish the purposes
for which the district is established
for which the district is established
and to properly operate
and to properly operate
and maintain its works of improvement.
and to maintain its works of improvement.
Congratulations and welcome to the board. You need to sign this, that way you're official. And I will hand the gavel over to Acting Chair Les Wodzinski, and thank you for the opportunity to serve Lake Lemon Conservancy District.
Okay. Okay, so Brett needs to leave, so we need to get to this officer thing real quick.
Okay, so we need to vote for the whole officer cadre, so treasurer, vice chair and chair, right?
He's
Okay,
acting.
so is that anonymous? Do we need the little cards?
No, and you can nominate a slate or individual. Past couple of years, we've done it just fine.
Les, do you want to be the chair? I will nominate you as the chair, if you want to be the chair.
I second that.
Okay. Are you, do you accept?
I will accept for this year,
Okay.
but next year you can look for.
And I'd like to nominate Malcolm as the vice chair.
Okay, I'll
I'd
accept that.
like to nominate Brett as the vice chair.
Well, it's a good thing you stayed.
And I'll second him as vice chair.
All right, then I will withdraw.
Are you willing to serve?
As vice?
That's a good question. Yeah, I can do that.
All righty.
Yeah, I nominate Deb as treasurer.
I'll second Debbie's.
I mean, I'm somewhat begrudgingly, so if you have very strong feelings, but I can.
You live much closer than
It's
I do.
true, it's true.
Okay, so it's Les, Brett, and Debbie. I concur.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
well, that was easy.
So do we have
I just want to call a vote. I mean, just if it's all ayes or unanimous, then
Yes.
Aye.
everybody. Aye, perfect.
Okay,
Unanimous
all
vote.
right,
That was easy.
okay.
All right.
No,
Thank you, board
go.
officers.
Thank you,
We'll see you,
Brett.
Brett.
Okay.
We do have the vote drawing coming up.
I need to go get my daughter too, so yeah. So two vote passes will be going out. First vote. There's a opening. The first vote pass will be to Sarah Gail Tala. Come on down.
Winning 40 years.
That's your what?
Fourth time winning in 40 years.
Well, that's
And the
pretty good.
second vote pass will go
The
to
meetings are about that size.
Jack. Dasko.
Wait a second.
Right there, my name. Yeah, I put it in for him.
While they're doing that, I would definitely like to thank Michael for his time on the board and serving as the chair. The knowledge that you brought with your Cardinal Clay experience and Parks and Rec, it's been great. You have taught me a lot. Definitely learned from you and improved with your knowledge. We will greatly miss you. You're right down the road. So I'll see you around in the park and maybe we'll see a smile and some more around the water. So thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, great job.
All right, that's gonna call it.
Okay, yeah, next meeting, March 28th.
So we'll update that, the updated resolution, next meeting will be in April.
That's correct. Okay.
Since I've been back.
So, we are adjourned.
When is the next meeting?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thanks, Doc.
Bye.
Yeah.